Get ready.
Hey everyone, this is Dan. Welcome to my first retro review. This is the other series I'm going to be doing besides the top 10. I'm going to be looking back at the classic Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis games. I have tons and tons to choose from. It'll keep me busy for a while. But want to kind of go over the premise of it a little bit with you. Basically, how it's going to work is one of you is going to pick the game through the comments below, messaging me, however. Pick a game from one of those three systems you will want me to talk about, review. What I'm going to look at is three aspects of the game. First, I'm going to look at the basic stuff like graphics, sound, quality, gameplay, controls, that kind of stuff compared to other games from the same system. How does it stack up? I'm also going to look at how does it play for that genre of game compared to other games on the same system of that genre. If it's a puzzle game, is it more or less fun than other puzzle games? Is it easier to play? Is it more intuitive? Is it garbage? And then the third thing, and in my opinion the most important thing, is how well has it aged? Especially for those younger viewers who never grew up with this stuff. How does it play compared to all the new stuff on the PS4, the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, and so on, PC? So I'm going to be kind of going through all of that. But enough of this introduction. You guys are not here for that. You're here to see the retro review. And the first one is going to be Skate or Die 2. It was requested by a friend of mine, Steve Heitzer. Shout out to Steve. So I'm going to be going over this game, seeing how good of a game it is and how well it stacks up nowadays. So let's get started. Alright, time to get to the heart of the matter. Skate or Die 2, Search for Double Trouble, was published and developed by Electronic Arts for the original Nintendo system. The original Skate or Die was actually released a few years prior by Ultra Games, which was a subsidiary to Konami. Ultra Games also did the games like the original Metal Gear, the Ninja Turtles games, the earlier ones, and so on. So they had a lot of talent in Ultra Games, and Konami, you know, the big hits that came from there, we all know Castlevania, Contra, etc. And then Electronic Arts is another big company, but it is a completely different company. So what kind of game are we going to get? Same game as the first one, completely different game. The only thing I can say for sure is it's going to involve skateboards, but we're not going to be able to find out all the details until we start playing it, so that's why we're here. Alright, let's see what we got. Steve, what in the world did you get me into? What? Steve, seriously? This? My first episode, this?
Skate or Die 2 was an adventure game that came out in the second half of the life cycle of the original Nintendo. While the technology of the time in the Nintendo system itself and the games was improving on a steady basis, and it showed in most of the games, for the most part in this game, it did not at all. The only exception to this is right up front, at the introduction screen. At that time, having voice work in a game was nearly unheard of. Even in the generation of the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, it was very rarely seen, one of the few exceptions being Super Metroid. When you first hear the voices in the title screen back then, it was probably mind-blowing in a positive way for about 5 seconds. After that, you were just getting annoyed to the point that your ears started bleeding from this horrendous use of, at the time, amazing technology. Now, unlike the first game, which was basically just a competitive high score kind of game comprised of multiple events to try, this game, being an adventure game this time, went for a story. The story itself is pretty weak and thrown in there to explain why they're doing what they're doing, but ends up just being a MacGuffin. But they did have a pretty decent cast of characters that comprised of a bunch of different punks, skaters, local shop owners, and Ariel? Seriously, The Little Mermaid is in this game. This came out in 1990, and The Little Mermaid movie, the Walt Disney movie, came out in 1989. And just to show you that the comparison is uncanny, let's look at them side by side. Tell me I'm wrong. And the fact that she's referred to as a thrasher is extremely hysterical and not in a good way. Okay, let's start with the sound. And to be perfectly blunt, it is incredibly bad. The sound effects are poorly done and don't sound like what they're supposed to sound like, which is bad enough. But the music is completely unforgivable. Half the songs also don't even make sense within the context of whatever's going on in the game. This is one of those games where your best bet is honestly to mute the TV and put on some much better music. Maybe something that should have been appropriate for a skateboarding game. Alright, looking at the graphics. The graphics for this game are fairly subpar. They're okay when compared to earlier games in the NES library, but for the time, they were rough. Now, I've seen worse, but not by much. And some of the animations, though, were really bad, and the game also seemed to lack a little bit of detail. The character models seem to be a little plain as they are. Now, folks, you have to understand, when I did that top 10 list, the first one, the top 10 NES games, Steve, a friend of mine, mentioned that this game should have been on the list, you know, in his opinion. And I wasn't really familiar with this game. What in the world, Steve?
Shut up! You're killing me, Smalls.
Seriously? This? Now, you are not allowed to make any videos. Wait a minute. Back that up. Hold on. Did I just see what I think I saw? Let's see. Okay, you know what? Maybe that was a glitch. Yeah, most games have at least one or two, even the most popular, most high-quality games. So we can't really give this game a hard time for. Nope, never mind. This is happening all over the place. Man, that is just some poor programming. It's a good thing EA learned his lesson by today. Nope. Never mind. Okay, let's talk controls. Well, controls are also fairly rough. The idea behind how you do things like tricks should work in theory, but the execution of the controls are terrible. To give you an example, you press right, you start moving right. Now you gain momentum as you're moving forward, but now you want to turn left, so you press left. But you don't just turn left and can keep going. You have to slow down from the momentum. You can't just quickly turn around and start going left. If you're trying to catch somebody, like say the shopkeeper who moves around, you're out of luck by the time you slow down, turn around, and try to go forward again. He's long gone.
and just the way that momentum works alongside the controls, trying to do certain tricks, you'll start getting blisters on your fingers. So it wasn't exactly intuitive, especially for the simple controller of the time. Where the original Skater Die, it's much easier to do what you need to do involving tricks. A little bit of momentum, but it was done right and just the right amount of balance. So obviously it's a bad game, to put it very nicely. But how well did it age? Well, just to give you one last example.
Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater.
Boxing alligators. Where would that make sense anywhere? Where would that make sense to a kid back then? Where would it make sense to a kid nowadays? Where would it make sense to adults that were playing it? It didn't fit in, but that was the general theme of this game. Nothing made sense. Not the story, not the characters for the most part, definitely not the enemies. The music, didn't matter. None of it made sense. No wonder this game wasn't exactly topping the charts in the various top 10 lists. Well, there you have it. Skater Die 2, The Search for Double Trouble. End of the day, it is garbage. Pure garbage. Bottom line, if you really want to play it, it's not available in Virtual Console or any sort of collection that you normally could find some of these games. You can order it online at the astronomical price of $3. That's what the lowball bids are on Amazon, eBay, etc. It's about $3. So if you really want to, waste $3, definitely order it. Play it on your Nintendo, your Retron, whatever you got. Probably, I don't know if you can find it at retro video game stores. I've never seen them myself in my searches, but it's cheap enough to order online. So if you really want to play it, have a ball. But I highly recommend against it. I mean, $3, you can, have a ball at the dollar store. Get a coffee and a couple donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. McDonald's right now, as of this recording, is doing the 2 for $2.50 special. Get a couple of double cheeseburgers and McChickens. But like I said, don't do it. Just don't. There you have it, my first retro review. Now, as you remember in my top 10 NES video, that was my first video ever. And I'm very proud of it. However, it was a lot of rough spots. It's my first video. I don't have the greatest recording equipment quite yet. But I did get a lot of feedback from you viewers out there. The good, the bad, the ugly. A lot of suggestions. I used some of the suggestions in this video. Some of them I used right out of the gate. Some of them I used variations of. Some of them I didn't use at all. But I do appreciate all the feedback, and I definitely would like more as I keep making these videos and trying to polish them up to a shine. Not going for the professional level, but just having some fun. But I really want to give you guys something quality. So thank you very much for that. I hope you noticed some of the changes that came about this. Like I said, better recording equipment now, a little bit better lighting. I'm still working on that. Most of the presentation was scripted, so as unlike before, and I'm going to keep working on these videos. But thank you for your time watching this. Keep those suggestions coming. Suggest videos for me to review down below in the comments. I'll definitely be keeping a list of these and working on them over time and trying to make sure everybody gets at least one or two of their choices on videos at some point. And I look forward to continuing to do this. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next video.